Hey guys, welcome to my YouTube channel. So let's see today top TestNG interview questions. So first question is, what is TestNG? So TestNG basically means test next generation. So it is a framework created for executing the unit test in Java program by the developers. So basically in our Selenium WebDriver, so we can use effectively to run our automation test scripts, and we can also use JUnit, but TestNG is the next generation for that. So most commonly we are using TestNG. So next question is, how will you install TestNG in your Eclipse? So for that, let's go to Eclipse. So for that, basically you have to go to help, and there is a Eclipse marketplace. So you have to click on that. Let's wait for to load. Okay, so you have to type just TestNG here, and if you will see there is a TestNG for Eclipse option, and there will be an install option to install in your system. So basically in my system it's already installed, so I got installed. So in your system you will get the install option. So once it is installed, and then you will have to restart, and you can use TestNG framework then. So coming to the next question, how to run the TestNG script. So to run the TestNG script, so you have to do right click. So coming here in the Eclipse, so this is a TestNG test scripts we have written. So to run that, basically we have to do a right click, and there will be an option run as and TestNG test. So when you click on that, all the test keys here will be executed according to the priority. So you can see they have executed, and we have total run is 3 and failure 0 and skip 0. So this is the way we can run TestNG. So the next question is on the annotations used in TestNG. So basically we have some preconditioned annotation, we have some post condition and annotations, and test annotation. So in the precondition we have before suit, before class, before test, before method, and in test annotation we have @test. And if you see in the post conditions, so we have after suit, after class, after test, after method. So these are the basically annotations which most commonly we use in our scripts. So coming to the next question, what are the sequence of execution of annotations in TestNG? So sequence will be basically first before suit will be executed, then before test, then before class, then before method, then basically your test will be executed, then after method, after class, after test, and after suit. But if you we note, if there are multiple tests, then this before method and after method will run for every test method. So this is the basically one difference. Coming to the next question, what are the advantages of TestNG? So advantages are like basically it's an open source framework, so hence it is easy to configure. Then we have using TestNG we can systematically create our test cases. So if we go to Eclipse, so we can basically write our test cases in a orderly manner, and we can prioritize them, and it gives lot of annotations which can turn the test cases creation easy. Yeah, so we have like lot of annotations, like we have before test, before class, before method, @test. Grouping of is also possible using TestNG. Yeah, so we can also group our test cases. So grouping is basically done, we have a groups keyword there, so we can specify here we can group our test cases, like we want to run our test cases in smoke or regression. So likewise according to the requirement we can do. Then next is it generates a very good HTML report. So Selenium WebDriver standalone cannot do this. So but using TestNG reports we can achieve that. So if we go to our framework, so there will be basically one index.html file that will be generated by basically our TestNG scripts when our scripts are executed. So if you open that, so if you see that we have like this report, so there will be result like how many passed, how many failed. So this was about the HTML report. Then data parameterization is also possible. So yeah, we can basically do data parameterization in TestNG. So what we can do is basically we can make an object class, and we have to annotate with data at the data provider, and then in the one will be the test method. So basically in the test method we have to supply these values in our test method. So to do that, what basically we will do is we will create one method which will be data provider. So we will pass first value, second value, and we will return object array. And then what we will do is we will create a test method, and we can provide in our data provider the name of the data provider, that is data provider. So got my point? So when we have to create one method, and then we have to basically we have done one parameter, we have given one parameter string val. So if we print, then we will get this value which will basically provided by our data provider method into our test method. So when we execute that, so let's see. So if we execute that, then the result will be like this. So parameter is first value, then the parameter is second value. So yeah, so we got like passed parameter. If we see console, then we have a passed parameter as first value and then passed parameter as second value. So the advantage is that we can test with different combinations of test data. So we can like say kind of data, different types of data, combination of data we can test. So it's kind of data driven testing type. The next is, in addition to all functionality, TestNG has its functionality which in turn make it more powerful. So we have like different functionalities in TestNG, and which makes it very powerful tool. The next question is how to set the priorities of TestNG. So to test, let me show you one test case. So we have to basically prioritize our test case. So priority basically depends on our we have to basically provide the priority in our test method. So for example, let me provide. So yeah, so if you see in the first method, the priority is 2. If we see in the second, priority is 1. If we see in the third, the priority is 0. So when we execute this, let's see what happens. So if we see, third test is executed first. Now why? Because priority here set is 0. Then the second test is executed. Second test has priority 1. So after 0, the priority 1 will be executed. Then the final is like first test. So it has the priority 2. So higher priority. So I mean lower priority than other 2. So it will be executed in the last. So we have all the tests executed. So 3 pass and 0 failures. So that's why how we can prioritize our test cases. So basically we have to use this priority keyword with our @ test annotation. So this was about the priority. Now the next thing is how to share the project report using TestNG. So guys, already told you, like we have one index.html, so I have shown you. So basically you can we can use this report and to email to our like stakeholder. So we can basically in our test output folder it is present, and we can use this. So coming to the next, how will you define grouping in TestNG? So yeah, grouping is one of the important feature. So whenever basically we have to test smoke, sanity, regression, so we can basically group our test cases accordingly. For example, let me show you. So for example, this is my first test method. So for example, I want to run this test case as a smoke, and I also want it to include in our regression. So what I can do is, like in groups I can provide this smoke and regression, I can pass as a parameter in. Then the second test I want to run in smoke only, so I have provided smoke. In the next I have provided regression, because I want this test case to be run in regression suite only. Now what we have to do is, so we have to basically provide in our TestNG.xml like which test case I have to run. So the TestNG.xml will basically start from our suite tag, then we have a test tag, so we can specify thread count and the name of the basically class. Then we have group tag, run and include. So in include we will basically include only those cases which we want to run. So for example, I want to run smoke, so wherever I have used smoke in groups, so that test case will be executed. Then we have classes, so we have to provide the path. So for example, my class is present in my project, my prompt project, and test scripts grouping test class. So if we see here, so I am running smoke now. So if we can see, smoke is present in my first test and it is present in second test. So now let's run it. So basically we can run from our TestNG.xml. So if I do run as TestNG test, so this will run our grouping test cases. So let's see. Okay, so I think this is the different one I have run. So this is the let me open this one. Yeah, so yeah guys, sorry, so that was basically wrong. We were referring to the other TestNG.xml file. Yeah, so it is present here. So this is the basically XML TestNG.xml file which we are using for our grouping. So if I do run as TestNG test, so if we see in the console, yeah, so we have executed first test and second test. So if I come to my TestNG class, so we can see here first test and the second test, these two were executed because both of them were having smoke groups. So this was about the grouping. Now the next is what is dependency in TestNG. So there are some methods in which many methods are dependent. For example, if we want to test any application and login of the page is not working, then it should not execute my other, for example, home page is dependent on login page. So if my login fails, then it should not execute my home page. So to do that, we have one depends on method. So let me fetch I think we can see here. So otherwise I can create another test. Let me create one test case. So for example, dependency test. Let me pick from here. I am giving login test here. So just I will print for now. I will print some message here. So for example, I am doing sys out and in login page. So I will create another method. So we can see here we have one depends on method. So if we click that and we can specify login test. For example, I am writing test home page, and this will basically depends on quickly. Let me write public void test home page. Depends on method and login test. Yeah, so guys, now what happens, like I have written like this, depends on method. So now this method will basically depend on login test to test. So first login test will test and then this method will test. So let me execute this. So run as TestNG test. Let me write here in home page. Now test. Let me test again. So like we can see, first home page is login page is executed, then home page is executed. So this was about dependency on TestNG. Now coming to the next question, invocation count. So what is invocation count and is in TestNG? So invocation count basically indicates like how many times I want to run my test case. So let me go to here. So for example, I have put invocation count as 2. Let me comment this one first. So this will only be executed. Yeah, so if I put invocation count as 2, so my first method will be executed twice. So if I run here, so let us see what happens. So basically 2 cases are executed. Now first method is executed twice because what happening is like I have put invocation count as 2.